Okay, I was talking to Mike Smith a little bit about what 5D is really like. And she wanted me to do a video on this. She thought that you guys would appreciate this information. So I'm going to describe it more completely. So, first of all, I need y'all to understand that when you change vibration, it's usually, not always, but usually, it's a gradual procedure. So you don't go to a gate at the end of 4D and open up the gate and step into 5D and it's one way. No, it's just like 3D going to 4D. Now, if you're in 4D proper now, you probably cannot access like mid 4D range. You cannot be in 4D range, mid 4D range, and access the lower vibrations of 3D without something really massively taking you down there. So in the middle of 4D, you really are not going to experience things like extreme, overwhelming despair. Okay? If you can still access the feelings of overwhelming despair, then you are probably in the lower vibrations of 4D, because there's like a range that is normally. Now, all of this can be done differently as well. So you can actually be in the higher vibrations of 4D, have something trigger you, and go into extreme despair. Now, when you go into extreme despair, you are then going to shoot yourself over to the timelines of the lower vibrations of where extreme despair is available. You're no longer going to be in 4D. You're going to be back in 3D. Now, you can jump back and forth, but most people do a gradual up and a gradual back. So they're within a certain range that they normally stay in. And as you gradually increase your vibrations, the more you do the higher vibes, the less you'll do the lower vibes. And then you go higher and higher, and you don't go low. You go lower and lower, less and less often. And there's this gradual back and forth. Like, you'll go to higher 4D, then something will trigger you and you'll go down to 3D, and then you'll center and go, oh no, look around, I'm a creator God, this is where I am. I have gone to the timelines where I am co-creating with all these beings in this vibratory range. That's not what I want to do. Visualize the higher vibratory range, center yourself, and you will gradually get higher and higher and higher. And there we go, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And there is a range. Now, this is really high 4D and below. Once you get into even the lower vibrations of 5D, they feel really, really good. And to drop down into the lower vibrations of 4D or even mid 4D really do not feel good. And as you get into 5D, the lower vibrations of 5D, when you get there, one of the ways you can tell that you're in the lower vibrations of 5D is things that didn't feel really bad before now really are almost painful. So much so that you will immediately center, go to timelines where you're at where you were before, which is the lower vibrations of 5D. It just feels really good. And the more you feel good, and for longer periods of time, the more not feeling good is really noticeable to you. Now, in 3D, feeling bad was just kind of a constant. So you tried to avoid despair, anger, extreme fear. That's what you tried to avoid. So it was not like you were happy. It was like you weren't in despair. You're not angry. You're not. As you move up into the lower vibrations of 5D, you will feel the beginnings finally of true happiness. And once you get that feeling, once you feel that feeling, you really want it back. You really want it back. You do not want to go down in vibrations. So when you're in lower 5D and you feel those happy moments, and what it will look like through your eyes is everything becomes sharper and crisper. The air is cleaner. It smells better. Everybody seems around you on these timelines of lower 5D to be in a good mood. Your news you could still listen to peripherally, and you can hear about bombings or rape and murder and robbery, but it's like wah 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 wah, where you can barely understand it. Just feels like it's a long ways away from your world. So that's kind of what the very low vibrations of 5D look and feel like. As you move up through 5D, and they're in the higher and higher vibrations of 5D, and to get you to understand that, let me explain that in 3D, you have vibrations all the way from despair to happiness. That's all the vibrations in there that are available, what you perceive as happiness in 3D. That's all that's the range. See how big that is? From total despair to you're happy that your child is born. That's the range you had in 3D. Well, 5D has got that much range too. And its top end range are things that you don't even remember. You don't even remember that they're available. That's what I was talking about in the other videos, is that you don't even know what unconditional high love is yet. You will in 5D. You will remember in 5D. So as you move up through 5D, then the things that I just described will become more and more striking. Now, it's going to happen gradually for most of you. Yeah, for most of you. It's going to be a gradual thing. Now, that gradual thing can happen faster or slower as long as you're in linear time, and that's up to you. You can decide how fast that moves or how slowly that moves. Some people want to take it slowly, and they might even be in 5D and really take it slowly, wanting to stay in time-space realities and really milk that process of moving up through 5D over several lifetimes as they move up. You can absolutely do that. Or there will be people like me who very definitely want to move along a lot faster, and get into 5D proper, what I say, 5D proper, mid-range of 5D within my lifetime for sure. Within a year, even better. But not be able to do it in a year. I may have other things that I need to get done before I get there. But it's a pretty consistently defined and really conscious effort on my part to move into that realm, in conjunction with the other things that I am supposed to be doing here. So correlating all that, I intend to move pretty fast through those. Okay. The more you get in the higher vibrations of 5D, things like fear will disappear. Well, fear is involved in eating things. So you won't be eating things. And there is an exception to that. Once you get to the higher vibrations and there's no fear on the planet altogether, if you want to eat a pizza, whatever, if you want to eat a pizza or a hamburger or a bowl of spaghetti, then what you can do is you simply will hold out your hand and visualize a hamburger, pizza, bowl of spaghetti, and from the energy of the ether, you will create the perfect that, and you can eat it. You absolutely could do that, but there is nothing that is raised or is killed or dies in the process, not in the mid-ranges of 5D and up, because there's no fear, and killing things causes fear. There are no jobs, per se, in mid-range, what I consider mid-range of 5D and up. There are no cities. The Earth is back to its blue-green status. If you want a castle or a villa along the water, then you simply manifest it the same way that you do. You just did the hamburger, and maybe you want to manifest a villa next to a lake or the ocean for a party, a get-together in physical form. You want to be in physical form, you want to interact with other beings in physical form, and it's super easy because you could just manifest the building as you wish, and then you can, in your mind, because everybody by that time, there's telepathy, you can send out a message, invite people, they come and have a party with you. When you're done with the party, then you unmanifest the building. So there aren't cities per se as you think of them in 5D, mid 5D and above. So if you're talking or you're listening to people and they're talking about these big cities like you see in movies that are all spires, or what are those, tall, skinny, pointy buildings and big cities with flying cars, all of that, that's all 4D, guys. It's all 4D. In 5D, you don't have any of that. It's the place is, well, if you want to interact with the magical beings, they're absolutely there. If you want to interact with, huge amount of what you consider aliens, then they're there. You don't have to sleep. You don't pee or poop. You don't do that. There's no throwing up. There's no sickness. When you go even higher, you get the hang of this instant manifestation, and by then you've gotten rid of a lot of your belief systems that make rules where there are no rules. You can get rid of gravity at that point pretty easily, so you can float or fly. You can teleport yourself at will to wherever you want to teleport. By the time you're in the higher vibrations of 5D, you can change yourself into a squirrel or whatever. You can make yourself whatever. You can look any way you want to. You can have wings. You can, you don't age unless you want to look older. You don't die. Nothing dies. In this is the by the mid-range of 5D, you can live a long time, like we're talking hundreds of years. By the time you get to the higher vibrations of 5D, then you can just, kind of... Has anybody watched Mr. Megorian's Magical Emporium, where he just twinkles away at the end whenever he's done? Well, you can do that. Or, I think there's religious things where beings have just floated up in a cloud and disappeared, or disappeared in front of people. You can do that and go and do something else. You can be a sphere of energy if you want. So basically the planet is back to its natural beautiful state of being blue and green. Even if you manifest a building, it kind of is floating above the ground, so nothing is harmed while it's there, so you don't smash any bugs or grass or anything. It's just kind of floating up there like that. A lot of people, when they do that, they create mansions in the sky, and then they fly up or float up into it. That way it's easier to not interfere with any of the other beings on the planet. So it becomes much more in 5D, mid 5D and above. It becomes a much more magical place, less like you would think of as civilized. There's no need for cars, although you could certainly create one and drive around or fly around, but it would drive around just slightly above the ground, again, so it wouldn't hurt anything or anyone. It would run on just because you wanted to. It wouldn't need gasoline or battery power or anything like that. So what do you do when you're in this planet? Well, there's a lot of stuff to do and to see and experience that most humans have been so busy working that they don't even know are on this planet. This planet is a really, really cool place. Very, very awesome, and there's a lot of beings on this planet. By the time you get into mid-range 5D, you're back to pretty good unity consciousness, and of course by the time you get to upper 5D, you totally understand and communicate with everyone and everything. and you can totally access the Akashic record. Now, from that point, you can zoom and go right back to source if you want to, and then you can come back out of source. Really, merging with source is really not as hard or as big a deal as maybe some people think it is. And it's not the end all be all. I mean, you could go back there, but the whole point is to come out of oneness and to create an experience and create an experience and create an experience. So that's usually what most of you guys that I'm talking to, the entities that you're doing it in some regard, some way, anyway. So certainly you could go back to source, especially from this whole experience, going from 3D to 5D and up, especially if you're a faster paced person, that you move up faster and then you get out of the time-space illusion, which you will do somewhere between mid 5D and above. Until you have come out of the time-space illusion, you are not in 5D, mid 5D or above. That's a good way of telling that. So until you see, and really it will happen it will make sense. You will go to timelines if you're moving fast where all of that does not go from Earth covered in roads and cities to no cities just overnight. They're not going to blow up. Well, I guess there's timelines where they could, but I can't imagine you blowing up the city or going to timelines, co-creating with individuals that are blowing up cities and then going over to 5D. But anything's possible. Anything's possible. But as you walk through the lower vibrations of 5D, 4D up to the higher, and then moving over to 5D and up, the way it transpires, the way it goes from what it is now to mid 5D will make sense in the process. There are timelines that it all makes sense. That that these, what you would consider now to be very magical events, will happen in a way, excuse me, that makes sense. And you will be co-creating on timelines with people and entities and beings that will help you, or that will agree with you in the uncreation of what we have and the creation of what is new. Okay, I'm about out. Love you bunches. Big hugs. Kisses. Bye. Akira says goodbye to everybody. Bye now. Hugs and kisses.